You already know what's wrong with you. When someone humiliates you, betrays your trust, or quietly works to destroy what you've built, something in your nervous system lights up that most people spend their whole lives pretending doesn't exist. It's not anger exactly. It's colder than that. It's the part of you that starts calculating, planning, imagining scenarios where justice finally catches up to them, and you get to watch. You don't say this out loud because it sounds unhinged, but in the privacy of your own skull, you've already written the entire script. Machiavelli would recognize that feeling immediately, not because he was cruel, but because he understood that the desire for retribution is older and more honest than any sermon about forgiveness. Here's the trap you're caught in right now. You've been conditioned to believe you have exactly two options when someone makes themselves your enemy. Option 1, react immediately, confront them, escalate, burn the bridge, and accept the collateral damage to your reputation, your peace, and everyone's perception of you. Option 2, swallow it completely. Be the bigger person, perform spiritual maturity you don't actually feel, and watch them walk away untouched while you carry the weight of unresolved rage. Both options fail because they're built on the same broken assumption, that speed equals power. Society has taught you that either you respond now, or you let it go forever, as if time itself isn't a resource you can deploy. This binary is a lie, and it's keeping you trapped in a cycle where impulsive people control the rhythm of your life simply because they move faster than you're willing to. The cost of this trap is higher than you think. Every time you explode, you hand your enemies evidence they can use against you later. Every time you suppress without strategy, you let resentment calcify into bitterness that poisons your decision-making for years. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're just operating with an incomplete map. The anger isn't the problem. The lack of a third option is. Machiavelli spent his life watching powerful people destroy themselves through impatience. He saw princes lose kingdoms because they couldn't wait 3 months. He saw alliances collapse because someone needed to be right immediately. And from that wreckage he extracted a principle that applies just as cleanly to your workplace, your social circle, and your family as it did to Renaissance Italy. The principle is this: you don't destroy your enemies by attacking them directly. You destroy them by mastering patience so completely that their own behavior, their impulsiveness, their ego, their need to be seen winning does most of the work for you. This isn't about being passive. This isn't about turning the other cheek. This is about understanding that in any conflict, the person who controls time controls the outcome. What I'm offering you isn't a technique to feel better about being wrong. I'm offering you a framework to shift the power dynamic entirely so that 6 months from now, the person who hurt you is still exactly where they are, while you've quietly moved into a position they can't touch. This requires you to tolerate short-term discomfort in exchange for long-term dominance. If that trade sounds impossible, this won't work for you. But if some part of you already knows that reacting immediately has never actually solved the problem, then Machiavelli's law of patience is the recalibration you've been searching for without knowing what to call it. Framework 1. Observation without performance. Most people watch their enemies the way they watch a reality TV show, emotionally invested, constantly reacting, performing their disapproval for an invisible audience. You're going to do the opposite. You're going to become a quiet collector of patterns, and this starts with a shift in your internal posture. Instead of thinking they're unbearable, you start thinking, when do they strike? Who do they strike around? What do they need to feel powerful? This sounds clinical because it is. Emotion clouds timing. Observation sharpens it. Here's what this looks like in practice. Someone at work undermines you in a meeting. Your natural instinct is to respond immediately, either by defending yourself in the moment or stewing about it all day and venting to a coworker. Both responses keep you locked in reactive mode. The Machiavellian approach is different. You register what happened. You note who was in the room. You notice whether this person does this consistently or whether this was situational, and then you go back to your work. You don't announce that you're observing them. You don't start plotting revenge in a visible way. You just quietly collect data points. What you're looking for are their patterns, their weapons, their triggers. Does this person attack when they feel threatened? Do they strike when they think no one important is watching? Do they use sarcasm, guilt, victimhood, or charm as their primary tool? You're not stalking them. You're just paying close attention every time your paths cross, the way a biologist studies an organism. After a few weeks, something useful happens. You start to see that your enemy isn't mysterious or brilliant. They're predictable. They use the same moves because those moves worked for them before, and once someone becomes predictable, they become beatable. The key discipline here is resisting the urge to perform your awareness. If you let them know you're watching, they adjust. If you stay invisible in your observation, they keep showing you exactly who they are. You're denying them the reaction they were hoping for, which itself is a form of control. They wanted you rattled. You're giving them nothing. That absence of reaction isn't weakness. It's you refusing to play the game on their timeline. Framework 2. Emotional delay, not suppression. When someone disrespects you, something primal happens in your body. Your heart rate spikes, your thoughts accelerate, and you feel an urgent pressure to respond immediately, to defend yourself, to correct the record, to make them feel what you're feeling. Machiavellian patience requires you to create distance between that stimulus and your response, not by suppressing the emotion, but by delaying its expression. This is one of the hardest skills to develop because it feels like swallowing poison, but what you're actually doing is preserving your ability to choose your response instead of being controlled by reflex. Here's the technique. When they say or do something that lights you up inside, you mentally mark it. You tell yourself, not now. Later, you can even visualize putting that moment on a shelf in your mind. This sounds abstract, but it works because it gives your nervous system permission to stand down without dismissing the offense entirely. You're not pretending it didn't happen. You're acknowledging it happened and choosing to deal with it when you're not flooded with adrenaline. In the moment itself, you do 3 things. First, you breathe, literally 1 or 2 deeper breaths. This buys your brain a few seconds to catch up to the situation. Second, you look at them, not away, not down, just long enough to show you've registered what they said or did. Third, you respond only if necessary, and if you do, you use fewer words than you want to use. Sometimes the most devastating response is noted, or we can discuss this properly later, or just silence with a slight nod. You're not playing cool for ego points. You're preserving your decision-making capacity for a moment when you can choose the battlefield. What ruins most people in conflict isn't the initial offense. It's how they reacted in the heat of the moment. You've seen this. Someone gets disrespected, and instead of handling it with calm strength, they explode, cry, throw out accusations, make threats. And guess what people remember 6 months later? Not the disrespect. The reaction. You don't want that. Every time you delay your emotional response, you're keeping your reputation intact, while your enemy slowly accumulates a record of impulsiveness that other people start to notice. Here's where the framework gets slightly ruthless but effective. The longer your enemy believes they're getting away with something, the bolder they become. They push further. They take bigger risks. They say things to more people. They get sloppy. They think your silence means you're weak or that you didn't notice. But what's actually happening is you're letting them dig deeper into a hole they don't realize they're standing in. When you finally do respond, if you need to, it's not in the moment when emotions are high. It's later, when you have clarity, evidence, and the high ground. Framework 3. Building position while they burn theirs. Patience isn't just about what you're not doing to your enemy. It's about what you're actively building while they're distracted by their need to win every small battle. This is where most people fail at strategic patience. They think it means sitting back and waiting for calmer, when what it actually means is using time to improve your position so dramatically that when the conflict resolves, you're in a place they can't reach. You're not obsessing over them. You're stacking advantages they won't see until it's too late. Let's break this into concrete actions while your enemy is busy playing petty games, talking behind your back, taking credit, spreading rumors. You're doing 3 things simultaneously. First, you're building your competence. You're getting better at your actual work, your craft, your skills, not to prove anything to them, but because competence is the foundation of power that doesn't require anyone's permission. You take on projects where your output is visible. You volunteer for things that stretch you. You quietly become someone whose results speak louder than any defense you could offer. Second, you're strengthening relationships with people who are respected and level-headed. You're not gossiping about your enemy. You're not recruiting allies in an obvious way. You're just consistently showing up as reliable, useful, and drama-free in your interactions with others. Over time, this builds a reservoir of credibility. When your enemy eventually tries to drag your name into their mess, and they will, the people who matter already have data on you that contradicts whatever story is being told. Third, you're becoming known as someone who doesn't create or escalate drama. This is critical because when conflict finally does surface in a way that forces others to pay attention, people will look at the pattern of behavior from both sides. If you've been messy, impulsive, and reactive up to that point, your enemy's claims will have traction. If you've been consistent, grounded, and focused on your work, their story won't match the data. You're not announcing that you're taking the high road. You're just living it quietly while they continue to erode their own standing. The discipline here is resisting the temptation to make every action about them. If you're improving yourself solely to prove them wrong, you're still giving them control over your motivation. The healthiest version of this framework is using them as initial fuel but gradually shifting to a deeper reason. You're building a better life because you want one, not just because you want a better comeback. If their name still runs your entire internal engine years later, they haven't been defeated. They're still controlling you, just from a distance. Framework 4. Selective correction and controlled defense. One of the hardest parts of Machiavellian patience is tolerating being misunderstood temporarily. While you're exercising restraint, there will be moments when people believe the story your enemy is telling about you. You'll feel an overwhelming urge to break character and start defending yourself to everyone who will listen. This is where most people crack. They can't handle the short-term perception cost, so they blow their strategic position by reacting prematurely. What Machiavelli understood is that not every misperception requires immediate correction. Some fade naturally when given time. Others need to be addressed, but only at moments when correction actually lands. Here's the principle. You correct what truly matters, and let the small misperceptions dissolve on their own. If someone spreads a rumor that you're difficult to work with, but the people you actually work with know that's false, you don't need to issue a public statement. Their direct experience contradicts the rumor more effectively than your defense ever could. But if someone makes a claim that could materially damage your opportunities, lying about your qualifications, falsely taking credit for your work, accusing you of something unethical, that's when you respond. And you do it with precision. When you do correct the record, you do it calmly, with specifics, and ideally in writing or in front of people whose opinion actually affects your life. You don't match their emotional intensity. You don't get defensive. You present facts the way a lawyer presents evidence, dispassionately, clearly, without embellishment. For example, if someone claims you missed a deadline that you actually met, You don't say that's a lie and they're trying to sabotage me. You say, I want to clarify the timeline because accuracy matters. Here's the email confirmation from that date showing the work was submitted on time. You're not attacking them. You're just making reality visible. The reason this works is contrast. If you've been measured and factual in your corrections while your enemy has been emotional and vague in their attacks, people notice the difference in credibility. You're not trying to win a popularity contest. You're trying to ensure that when it matters, when decisions are being made, when opportunities are being distributed, the people with power have an accurate picture of who you are versus who your enemy is. The trap to avoid is defending yourself against every single criticism or comment. If you do that, you look guilty and easily rattled. People start to wonder why you care so much about every little thing. The Machiavellian play is selective visibility. You pick the battles that have material consequences and let the noise fade. It requires emotional maturity most people don't have, which is exactly why it works. Your composure under misrepresentation becomes its own form of evidence. Framework 5. Irrelevance as the ultimate victory. There's a form of victory that most people never consider because it doesn't feel satisfying in the moment, but it's the most devastating in the long run. It's not the dramatic confrontation. It's not the public humiliation. It's making your enemy irrelevant to your life. Not through forgiveness, not through spiritual transcendence, but through strategic detachment. You stop being the person they can bait. You stop being locked into their narrative. You move into a playing field where they simply don't exist. And from the outside, it looks like you've moved on. But what's actually happened is you've made their entire existence non-essential to your forward motion. Here's how this works in practice. Some people derive their entire sense of power from the fact that you're locked into a conflict with them. They bait you. You bite. They get attention and drama and a sense of importance. They become the person who's against you, and that gives their life structure. If one day you just opt out, you stop responding, you stop checking their social media, you block or mute them, you emotionally detach and redirect your energy toward bigger goals, you remove the oxygen from their fire, suddenly they're standing there shadowboxing with someone who isn't in the ring anymore. To everyone else, this starts to look strange. Why are they still talking about you? Why are they still bringing your name up when you've clearly moved on? The longer this goes on, the more it reflects poorly on them, not you. They start to seem obsessed, petty, stuck. Meanwhile, you're building something new, a better job, a stronger social circle, a project that actually matters to you. You're not doing this to prove anything to them. You're doing it because your attention is finite, and you've decided it's worth more than they're offering. This doesn't mean you pretend they never hurt you. It doesn't mean you're spiritually enlightened and wish them well. It means you've calculated that the best use of your energy is building a life so full that their existence shrinks down to a footnote. If you're dealing with someone right now who feels like an enemy, there's a good chance part of you wants a specific moment, the apology, the public acknowledgement that you were right, the scene where they finally understand what they did. You might get that, but you probably won't. The Machiavellian lore of patience asks you to aim for something more reliable, the quiet, unglamorous reality that 5 years from now, you're in a better place and they're stuck repeating the same patterns that made them your enemy in the first place. If you've made it this far, you're not looking for a quick fix. You're looking for a fundamental recalibration of how you handle conflict, betrayal, and the people who make themselves obstacles in your life. What Machiavelli's law of patience offers isn't just a set of techniques. It's a new operating system for power that runs on time instead of emotion. But integration is where most people fail. They understand the concepts intellectually, maybe even agree with them, but when the next person disrespects them, they revert to the same reactive patterns because those patterns are wired deeper than logic. Changing this requires you to rebuild your identity around a single uncomfortable truth. Patience is not weakness, and speed is not power. Start by recognizing what you've been doing until now. You've been operating in a world where the person who reacts fastest feels like they're winning. Someone insults you, and if you don't clap back immediately, it feels like you lost. Someone undermines you, and if you don't defend yourself in real time, it feels like you're letting them get away with it. That feeling is a lie your nervous system is telling you because it evolved in environments where threats were immediate and physical. But the conflicts you face now are not saber-toothed tigers. They're reputation games, credibility battles, long-term positioning wars. The rules are different, and if you keep playing by instinct, you'll keep losing to people who understand this. The first shift is internal. You need to start measuring victory differently. Right now, you probably measure it by how you felt in the moment. Did I stand up for myself? Did I make them regret it? Did I get the last word? Those are all emotional scorecards. And they're useful for short-term satisfaction, but useless for long-term dominance. The new scorecard is this: 6 months from now, who is in a better position? That's the only question that matters. If you explode today and feel powerful but damage your reputation in ways that cost you opportunities later, you didn't win. If you stay silent today and use that time to build leverage that makes you untouchable later, you won even though it didn't feel like it at the time. The second shift is behavioral. You need to practice emotional delay in low-stakes situations so it becomes automatic in high-stakes ones. Next time someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of honking immediately, wait 3 seconds. Next time someone says something mildly annoying in a group chat, instead of typing your response instantly, put the phone down for 5 minutes. These are trivial examples, but they train the same muscle, the ability to insert space between stimulus and response. You're reprogramming your default setting from react to choose. Over time, this becomes your natural rhythm. When something genuinely threatening happens, you won't have to think about whether to delay. You'll just do it because it's who you are now. The third shift is relational. You need to start surrounding yourself with people who operate on longer timelines. If everyone in your circle is impulsive, reactive, and dramatic, their energy will pull you back into those patterns, no matter how disciplined you are. Find people, even just 1 or 2, who move slowly, think strategically, and don't need to win every argument. Watch how they handle disrespect. Notice how they respond to provocation. You're not imitating them. You're absorbing their frequency so it starts to feel normal instead of unnatural. There's a cost to this transformation that nobody talks about. You will lose some relationships. People who were drawn to the old version of you, the reactive, emotional, dramatic version, won't know what to do with the new version. They'll accuse you of being cold, detached, or fake. They'll try to bait you back into old patterns because your calmness makes them uncomfortable. Let them go. They're attached to a version of you that was easier to control, and the fact that they're resisting your growth is proof that the growth is real. You will also have to grieve the fantasy of instant justice. There's something seductive about the idea of immediate revenge, the scene where you destroy them in front of everyone and they finally understand what they did. Machiavellian patience asks you to trade that fantasy for something less cinematic, but more reliable. The slow, boring accumulation of advantage that compounds over years. This requires emotional maturity most people never develop, which is exactly why it works. You're not trying to feel powerful in the moment. You're trying to be powerful in reality, and reality rewards patience more consistently than it rewards spectacle. Finally, you need to accept that this will never feel natural. Even after you've integrated these principles, there will still be moments when someone disrespects you, and every fiber of your being wants to react immediately. That feeling doesn't go away. What changes is your relationship to it. You learn to feel the urge, and then watch it pass without acting on it. You develop a quiet observer inside yourself who can say, I see that I'm furious, and I'm choosing to do nothing with this fury right now. That observer is your Machiavellian self, the part of you that plays the long game even when the short game is screaming for attention. Here's what you're going to do in the next 24 hours. Not because I'm telling you to, but because if you don't take action immediately, this entire framework will dissolve into theoretical noise you forget by tomorrow. Right now, there's at least one person in your life who has positioned themselves as your enemy. Someone who disrespected you, undermined you, betrayed your trust, or quietly roots for your failure. You know exactly who I'm talking about because their face appeared in your mind at some point during this video. That person is your testing ground. For the next 24 hours, you are going to do absolutely nothing to them. You are not going to confront them, subtweet them, vent about them to mutual friends, or check their social media. You are going to practice observation without performance. If you interact with them, you will be polite, brief, and unremarkable. If they try to bait you, you will give them nothing. You are experimenting with what it feels like to control time instead of being controlled by emotion. This is not forgiveness. This is not letting it go. This is you collecting data on what changes when you stop feeding them your reactions. At the end of those 24 hours, you're going to write down 3 things. First, what patterns did you notice about their behavior when you stopped reacting? Did they escalate? Did they seem confused? Did they move on to a different target? Second, what did you feel in your body when you resisted the urge to respond? Was it relief, frustration, power, discomfort? Third, what did you do with the energy you would have spent reacting? Did you redirect it toward your work, your health, your relationships, or did you just stew in it? These 3 observations will tell you whether Machiavellian patience is something you can actually implement, or whether you need a different strategy entirely. If after 24 hours you feel like you lost something by not reacting, this framework isn't for you yet. You're still wired for short-term emotional payoff, and that's fine. It just means you're not ready for the long game. But if after 24 hours you feel a strange calm, a sense of control you haven't felt before, a quiet confidence that you're playing chess while they're playing checkers, then you've just discovered something most people spend their entire lives never understanding. Patience is not the absence of power. It's the presence of power that doesn't need to announce itself. The second part of this challenge is harder. For the next week, you're going to actively build your position while they continue burning theirs. You're going to take on one project, have one conversation, or develop one skill that makes you more competent, more connected, or more credible. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be directionally correct. Every day that you improve while they stay stagnant is a day the power dynamic shifts in your favor. You're not doing this to prove anything to them. You're doing it because you're no longer willing to let their existence dictate the trajectory of your life. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. You will never get the apology you want. You will never get the acknowledgement that you were right and they were wrong. You will never get the scene where they finally understand the pain they caused and beg for your forgiveness. That fantasy is keeping you stuck because you're waiting for something that will never come. Machiavellian patience doesn't wait for them to change. It changes you into someone they can no longer affect. That transformation is the real victory. And it's available to you right now if you're willing to trade short-term satisfaction for long-term dominance. If you're still here, you're the kind of person who doesn't just consume content. You use it. You take abstract ideas and turn them into concrete action because you understand that information without implementation is just entertainment. So here's your final instruction. Close this video, identify your enemy, commit to 24 hours of strategic silence, and begin building the position that makes their opinion irrelevant. Don't tell anyone you're doing this. Don't perform it for an audience. Just do it and observe what changes. In 6 months, you'll look back at this moment as the turning point between being controlled by people who hurt you and becoming the kind of person they can't touch. That's the law. Now, go apply it.